If you're from LA and you just so happen to be Mexican or Filipino, odds are that you've probably heard of a little Chicano hood film called Blood In, Blood Out. If so, and you think you know everything about that movie, I guarantee after watching this video, you'll think otherwise. But, as I say, Q vole, it's the G and Geek, and you're watching 10 facts about Blood In, Blood Out you probably didn't know about.
This is Police Chief Malone. I'm calling from Amityville.
Did you say Amityville, where all those murders took place? The painting, the toy monkey? That Amityville?
Oh, hell no! Ain't this where that crazy ass white dude killed his whole family?
I want to know what happened to that weed I sent you to New York to bring back for me.
This on some whole other level.
It seems a new strain of extremely potent marijuana has hit the streets in the city of Compton.
We have reason to believe that this strain is coming from that house in particular.
She became somebody else, something else.
I want the rest of that weed found and brought to me. Now, you hear me?
I will do whatever I need to do to end this evil.
Hi, welcome back. Now, as you can tell from the thumbnail right there, I wanted to give you 10 unknown facts about the movie Blood In, Blood Out, or Bound by Honor, depending on how you remember it, and things of that nature. Something a little different for my channel, you know? Now, this movie plays real big into the historia of gangsterism. Yeah, you know, Chicanoism, Choloism, whatever you want to call it. As a Filipino born in East Los, I grew up watching these movies. Suave, Al. I grew up with this movie. I thought there was a lot of comedy in it, as opposed to American Me. I didn't know the history that went into it. Hell, I didn't know a lot of things that went into making this movie. We didn't have much when it came to movies about Latinos or Chicanos, Cholos. All we had was Mi Familia, Mi Vida Loca, Dukes of Earl, Boulevard Nights, and of course, American Me. So, without further ado, number 10. Blood In, Blood Out is owned by Disney. Don't believe me? Look it up. Blood In, Blood Out was actually the first R-rated movie released by Disney. That is the reason why there was that name change. And the reason why I put it so low on the list is because I've been talking about this for the past 20 years. So let's jump to number 9. Did you know the original cut of the movie was 5 hours long? Absolutely. And Disney was gonna actually put it out that way. If only streaming services had existed back then. But the fact remains that it was actually going to be produced and put out as a 5-hour movie. Man, that's like all 3 Godfathers in one. Man, I'm a stoner. I got a short attention span. No wonder they shortened it. Number 8. The original film was not based on Miklo as the lead character. It was actually based on Paco and his girlfriend. Miklo was actually the 4th character in line. From what I heard of all the deleted material, it was actually based on Paco and his girlfriend going through some domestic issues. And of course they were gonna factor in Crucito's part along the way. But yeah, this flick was supposed to be based on Paco Aguilar. Hey, el gallo negro, baddest Chicano in the barrio. That ain't him no more, que no? Number 7. In all the prison scenes, did you know all but 7 of the actors were actually prison inmates? See, the studio wasn't about to find some doubles for these prisoners in San Quentin at the time, you know? And so a lot of these guys, the majority of them, 99.98% of these individuals that were in these scenes were actual prisoners. These weren't stand-ins flown in just to portray a certain image, no. These were real-life convicts serving time. A lot of them lifers. A lot of the gente you see in these scenes are actually from Northern California. Norteños, Northsiders, pinche farmers. Number 6. El Pino. The tree in East Los, you know that tree scene? is actually the most recognizable tree in the world now. It is now known as the Tree of Life, and a lot of people from Japan, China, and different nations flock to East LA just to see this real tree that was basically memorialized in the movie. Hell, that tree even has IMDb credits, come on. Number 5. This movie takes place from the years 1972 to 1984. Now that's an historical fact. See, there's a lot of jagoffs out there that actually believe this movie was based in the 60s. No! From 1972 to 1984, there was a certain time period there, and there was a big transition going on in prison. There was a struggle for power at that time. You have to understand that a lot of the big organizations at the time formed in the 60s and even prior to the late 50s. 60s, so what you had was a fight for power. In the late 70s, this is when a lot of killings was happening, and they wanted to take this time period because they wanted to show you how it was on the streets in the Chicano culture and how things were changing for Latino people, as well as in prison, how things were starting to move on and how things were changing, and it was done in a direct fashion. Perfection. Mwah. Number 4. This movie is mostly based on the life experiences of Jimmy Santiago Baca, a poet who actually lived in the barrios in LA. He actually lived that life, and he was around during this time. So a lot of the things that he was involved in, becoming a gang member, the tattoos, the traditions, the hydraulics, the lowrider scenes, the cholo scenes, he actually lived all that firsthand. Well shit, so do we, and we didn't get no action or credit. I'm always like, what you know about P. Diddy's, dog? Orale crack, if you don't know about that, you don't know about shit. So yeah, this movie is lightly based on a lot of his experiences, his real true life experiences in the barrio. You know, where the hood just cries out for real sangre por sangre. Number 3. Carlos leaving La Onda. Remember that? America's cup of coffee. Órale. Carlos leaving La Onda was a lightweight symbolization of the NF-M defection. A lot of people get it mixed up. There really never was no defection. It was just a few vatos from SoCal that never took into the image. Basically, they never agreed with certain things. You know, it's neither here nor there. And without going too much into the historia that's been put out there several times, they just didn't agree with certain policies, politics, rules, and regulations, and decided to start their own organization and do their own thing. It was never about vatos from up north getting oppressed or vatos from down south doing no. Once upon a time, they were all Latinos, mainly from the sur. Well, I don't mean sureños, I mean Southern California. Vatos from down south. A lot of us from Maravilla, 18th Street, Clanton, all the other big gangs that, for no other reason, should start their own organization. So this thing with Carlos was actually showing the separation of North and South. Two clicas, Mexicano clicas, been formed in prison at the time they did it without really doing it, without showing you the facts and showing you the actual history. But it was all hinted. Number 2. Did you know that the director was actually given permission and had to go seek permission from the 3 big organizations? Not necessarily the NF. The NF gave their permission to use the norteños in the movie, but he did it the smart way, unlike Edward James Olmos that got a lot of people killed. He was smart enough to actually get at members in these big 3 organizations. When I say Black Guerrilla Family, Emme, and the Aryan Brotherhood, and actually ask permission to use a spin-off name, you know, that's where you got Aryan Vanguard, the Black Guerrilla Army, all that bullshit. So yes, they kept it loosely based, but enough for you know and not know, you know? Number 1. Miklo is loosely based and inspired by Joe Pegleg Morgan from Ford Maravilla. Joe Morgan is a very historical figure within La M. He's looked at as the godfather of the organization, and he is very well respected and deserves every bit of his respect. He earned that and gained that, and being Anglo-Saxon, being not necessarily Mexicano, but instead growing up with Mexicans, but being more Slavic, or actually a Slavic individual growing up in a Mexicano neighborhood, they utilize this Miklo character to loosely base it off of him. You know, to show him coming up as a man of a different race, of a different person at that time, of different people, and being accepted. the acceptance and ultimately becoming one of, if not the leader of this group. So it was loosely based on Joe Morgan and showed a lot of intricacies, a lot of details. Now, of course, there's a lot of inaccuracies and they weren't meant to be accurate. This movie was not trying to be accurate. It was not trying to be like American Me. With that said, these are just 10 facts about Blood In, Blood Out. I might give out 10 more on another video, but that's all I have for now. Get the fuck on.